everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com, the #1 site for learning bass online. We have a special guest for this week's interview on location in Vegas right now from Butcher Babies bassist Ricky Bonazza. Hello, Ricky.
How are you?
I'm doing great. We did an interview about 2 years ago, so it's a little sooner than usual for a follow-up, but I understand you have a lot of very cool new things to talk about. Last interview, we talked about Italy, and we talked about Switzerland and Duff McKagan and Steve Harris and Musicians Institute, sound engineering, Dead by Wednesday, Flotsam and Jason, Flotsam and Jetsam, Jason Newsted is what I was trying to say. So, a lot has happened in the last couple of years. So bring us up to date. What's keeping you busy these days?
Oh man, it's a lot of stuff going on right now. As you mentioned, we started touring last year. With Butcher Babies. We did a headline US tour. We played a lot of the festivals in the US, like Welcome to Rockville, Louder Than Life, Aftershock, and stuff like that. And earlier this year in March, we went to Michigan, in Midland, Michigan, to record and write a new album with Josh Schroeder. So
I'm not too far from Midland, Michigan. I used to be in Detroit for many, many years. Now I'm more toward the central part of the state, mid-Michigan. So you were just a little bit north of where I'm sitting right now.
It was very north for us. Pretty cold, but it was a cool experience, man. Like being in
more ways than one.
Yeah, being in a small city, and not something like Los Angeles or Las Vegas, but something more, I would say, intimate and like more conservative in a way. So that was pretty cool.
How long were you there?
We were there for 5 weeks.
It's long enough. It's enough. Were you there like in the dead of winter? When were you there?
We were there from end of February till end of March, so it got pretty cold.
We got snow in April. We had snow in April, which is it's not unheard of, but it does happen.
I mean, 11 degrees is pretty cold.
Yeah. So you were recording a new album with Butcher Babies.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, what can you tell us about it? Because I know your fans are eagerly awaiting.
So it's pretty early right now to say stuff because we just finished recording it, and I know the girls are doing some vocal stuff, finishing up some vocal stuff. So it's really early actually to tell. But it's definitely going to be a very interesting album. Again, we spend a lot of time in the studio with Josh, writing it, coming up with ideas, try to do new stuff, so.
Has a release date been announced?
Unfortunately not. Again, like everything's super early, it's like you're wrapping it up, and then, to mixing and mastering, Do
you have a title for the record?
We do not have a title yet.
Okay. I understand it's early. You can't really talk about it. I get that. We all get that. But how would you say it compares to any of the previous stuff that you've put out?
I would say it's a very versatile album. Like there's definitely a bunch of stuff where we experimented a little more. There's some really heavy bangers on it. There's some, more slow, like, more accessible stuff on it. So I would definitely say it's a very, very interesting album, and it's a very musical journey. I would say that's the way I would describe it. So. From the first song to the last song, there's, always like an evolution, so to speak. It's almost like a movie, you know. And I really love that.
I was so happy that you mentioned touring is in the works.
Mm-hmm.
Is it starting to feel like things are kind of getting back to normal, or at least heading in the right direction?
Yes, I would say so. I would say so. I mean, you always hear stuff, and people have to cancel because of, you know, uh, what we were dealing with the past 2 years. But even when we went out in 2021, that's when everything started to come back.
Yeah.
It felt normal and surreal, you know, at times, especially the festivals and stuff were really, really amazing. You know,
It was almost
really.
surprising to hear that you were as busy as you were touring in 2021, because I think we were all kind of still like, oh, should we, shouldn't we? You know, is it okay to go out? And
Exactly. And we felt like that too, but you know, at one point you just, you know, have to go back out and do it, you know. And you know, we got green light, you know, everything was opening back up. And so, yeah, we had a great time, and we were lucky because we didn't have to cancel any shows. We had to cancel one, but that was due to weather issues in New Orleans. So, but you know, we all stayed happy, you know, and we're following guidelines and stuff like that, and it was great. It was great for us,
so
especially after 2 years, almost 2 years.
when is the tour? Because I would imagine you'd want to coincide that with the release of the album somewhat,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. So we have a couple of festivals line up this year. Sorry.
You're going to be in the US, you're going to be in Europe.
Yes. Both. So we're going to play 3 festivals here in the US in July, which is Rockfest, Incarceration, and Upheaval. And then we're going to go to Europe in August, where we do Bakken and Bloodstock. We also will be doing a couple of headline shows around the festivals in Germany. And then we have a European tour in October with Amaranthi, which was announced, I think, a couple of months ago or something. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be a busy year.
I'm excited for you. It's got to feel great to be getting back out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel blessed.
Let's talk some bass stuff. And we touched a little bit on some of the bass technique last time, but I got to tell you, given the kind of music that you play, I'm still a little surprised to see you play with your fingers as much as you do, as opposed to a pick.
Okay.
Would you care to comment on that?
Yes, I mean,
come on, let's piss some people off here. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. No, so I prefer, I definitely prefer the finger style. You know, it's something that if you look at all my heroes, you know, like, again, Steve Harris and, you know, Geddy Lee, Frank Bello, Geezer, you know, all finger players. However, I will say that in the studio, when we recorded this Butcher Baby album, there were a couple of parts where, you know, you just get a different sound with a pick. So
it almost sounds like you're saying, well, I'll play with a pick when I have to, but
when I
rather not.
Yeah. No, I think the song determines whether you're going with a pick. So, for example, I probably would not play a Lamb of God song with fingers. You know what I mean? So there's certain types and styles of music where it's just calling for that pick, you know? So yeah, but man, every time I pick a pick, get a pick in my hand, I really enjoy it. I have to say it, you know, it's different harmonics, different sounds. You get a certain amount of precision also. Definitely. But then again, for as a piece of advice for people, I would really let the song determine, you know, what approach you should take, to be honest.
Well, I'm glad you're in giving advice mode, because I want to talk to you about that. Most of the people that come to For Bass Players Only to learn bass tend to be men in their 50s, 60s, 70s. They just love the old classic rock and the soul music and some of the funky stuff from the 60s and the 70s. So can you follow up on the advice that you have, now that you have a little context of who's coming to For Bass Players Only to learn? I mean, we do get a fair bit of women. We get some younger people too, but generally speaking, what other advice do you have for someone who wants to learn bass? What do you think is important for them to
know? For me, honestly, the most important thing is try to, play as many songs as possible from, all kinds of different bands. You know
what? I'm just remembering now. I asked you that last time, and your answer was similar. And you mentioned Lamb of God, and you also mentioned Katy Perry.
Oh, I did. Yes. Man, to be so like, I remember
quite a spectrum there.
Yes. No, man. I remember coming to LA and doing all these jam nights, at the Viper Room and the Whiskey and stuff like that. And every other week, you just play a different song. Again, like you just mentioned, like Katy Perry, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And looking back at that, I think that's what made me a better bass player, to be honest. I mean, besides the fundamental stuff with practicing with a metronome early on, and techniques aside. But, if you really want to expand your horizon, so to speak, then just try to learn as many songs, as many as your favorite song possible.
I think what you mean is as many different styles as
styles too. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't slap up until honestly 2 or 3 years ago, so, and then I was like, man, I'm missing something here. So I sat down and I started listening to, Primus and Red Hot Chili Peppers and, Marcus Miller and all these cats, and I tried to learn as much as I can, and it was hard. Definitely go out of your comfort zone. It's hard sometimes and frustrating, but it will pay off.
How about two-handed tapping? Are you excited about that or interested in that? Do you like it?
Absolutely. No, I love it. I do it sometimes. Again, like, I'm not a super tap bass player, but again, like, if you get into all of these things and you try them out and you experiment, when you go into the studio, like we did with Butcher Babies, for example, the situation that we were in required us to come up with parts right at the spot. And so instead of just doing the picking stuff or, like the finger stuff, you're like, hey man, let's try to slap in this part. Let's try to do some slapping thing. Or, hey, maybe I can do this. I can tap this chord or something. So again, you expand your horizon and automatically you bring more value to your craft, to your playing, and to whoever you work with,
Again, I'm sure it goes without saying, but that wasn't technique for the sake of technique. I assume it was because you were trying to help the song and give the song what it needs, which probably doesn't need to be said, but maybe it does. I just want to underscore that because, there's so many guys that, so many players, particularly young players, that will just do something because they can and not necessarily because the song needs that or because it will enhance the song, which is also a very important lesson.
Absolutely. It's very important to me because, again, when you're in a studio, let's say someone hires you to record a song or whatever, like, it's about their song, and you serve them and the song, and I think the key is to write bass lines that serve the song, but also lets you show off in a way, like, because it's hard as a bass player. I mean, let's be honest,
Well, if you say this is what the song needs and I can do that, and I'm going to try to do that really well.
Exactly. And you know, essentially that's what makes a good bass player, you know.
As far as the metal culture goes, well, what I'm getting at in a minute though is it's also the instrument. I did an interview with my old Detroit buddy Matt Bissonette, and he made such a profound comment, because he says when he goes to the studio, first thing he asks is, well, what kind of sound do you want? Because the actual bass that I use is going to determine, do you want like a 60s thing, do you want a James Brown thing, do you want a funky thing, do you want a rock thing? And the bass, his point was, determines all that. And I said,
Yes.
yeah, it really does. And the strings and the setup. But what I was getting at though, as far as the metal culture goes, as a bass player, you're all in, tuning way, way, way down and tuning low. And I thought that would be interesting for our audience too. I think last time you said sometimes you go down to an A, and
yes, even lower sometimes.
and well, four strings. I know you were talking about Fenders, and you also said you had some 5 strings. But is that still pretty much what you're playing, or are you playing something different? And how low do you go, and why do you need to go?
Okay, so that's a lot to talk about for sure.
Well, just so in general, if you can encapsulate that, just give
no. I'm still using my Fenders, and I am gonna use it for a while. Like I don't know, like these two instruments, like the P bass and the J bass, they just do something for me, man. It's I don't know if I mentioned it last time, but like, you know, I went through NAMM and I tried all kinds of, you know, different basses, and they're great. You know, I'm not saying they're bad, but just Fender, it's just what it's just for me. I don't know. As far as the low tuning, I think with the 5-string, I think I can bring it down to like a G and an F sharp, something like that. Is it ideal? I don't know. So I try to not go lower than that. And I know bands, they go way lower. But it's lower?
Way lower than an F sharp?
Yes. I mean, you can, like the long scale basses right now, like from Dingwall, for example, I think you can go down to a E, like a low E.
Like a low E.
So, low E, yeah.
Like an octave lower than.
Yeah. But so with Butcher Babies, for example, it works out because I can just stay in my regular octave. So I'm just going to be tuned B flat standard. Okay. And because Henry, he uses an 8-string, so we basically match octaves. So it works out.
Well, when you say 5-string B flat, so you're just a half step lower than
a half step lower. Yeah.
Okay.
With Butcher Babies, it works out that way. You know, and now on this new album, we have a couple of lower tunings going on, like A, and I think there's an E somewhere and an F, like low E and F. But you know, not like every song. You know, but most of the songs I can get away with just a 5-string regular standard tune.
What about going in the other direction, going higher? You don't seem to have as much interest in that, going above a C string, or I don't know, an F string, or
I rarely play in like E standard tuning, unless it's like for I recently did a session for a country band, and that's funny you mentioned the difference in metal and other genres. So that one was a totally stripped down, you know, just a bass going into an MPEG, and that's it. You know,
what I'm talking about, what I'm asking now, do you have an interest in having a string that's higher than a G?
Oh, higher than a G? Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah.
Not
I
at the
don't think
moment.
I don't think you need it. I mean, you get up there and you're not, well, here we're going to piss some more people off here, but but it's not really functioning like a bass. But when you're playing a solo on a 4-string bass, if you're in the upper
Yeah.
register, you're still not functioning in the traditional role of the bass. Then you
Yep.
play your solo, then you get back down to taking care of business as a bass player, locking in with the
Exactly.
drummers, setting the foundation for the band, making the music feel good.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's amazing how far the bass has come in what 70 years or however long it's been around.
Yes, and I hope and man, I see like pop artists like Billie Eilish and other big pop artists using the bass more and more as the main instrument, like with the opening riff, and so seeing that is really cool because I do feel, and I express that a lot, that bass is really, really underappreciated right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Not by these guys, not by this
no,
audience.
no, not by this, no, but yeah. So it's great to see stuff like that coming back.
I also want to ask you, you were going on and on about your Doug Pinnick pedal, your Tech 21.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
assume you're still a fan of Tech 21 stuff.
Big time fan. It's what I used on the album. It's what I used
that pedal that I mentioned, or
yes.
other?
Yep. I walked in the studio and we're trying a bunch of pedals because it's just what you do in the studio. And Josh had a couple pedals. I brought a couple pedals, and we tried them all, and it was a no-brainer. We're like, that's what we're gonna use. It just fits. It just fits.
It's amazing that so many people say that, but I've interviewed over 800 bass players so far, and they're not all, they don't all play Butcher Babies style music. They play all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing how the Tech 21 and the Sans amp and all that, they just work for so many different styles and so many genres. It's amazing.
Oh, I used the Doug Pinnick for R&B sessions. Because you can get this like round and thick and warm tone, that you need for this type of music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you want to get a little angrier, you just crank up the drive and
there you go.
I
want to ask you a little bit more about the future. You mentioned the tour, and I'm sure that's going to be going on for a long time, all those places that you mentioned, but as far as you can see, what about the future, not necessarily just for Butcher Babies, but for Ricky Bonazza? What else can you see long term? Or you've done an awful lot. You mentioned you also write a lot for was it for TV? I think you said, or for films? Okay,
yes, like music libraries and
music libraries. That's what you said.
Stuff like
so
that.
Is there anything else that you'd like to do that you haven't already accomplished?
Well, so what I'm doing right now, when I'm not on tour, I focus a lot on writing music and producing music, as you just mentioned. And I want to release some new music soon. I have stuff written. I have stuff recorded. I'm actually doing a video for a new single that I want to release.
Not to put you on the spot, but I mentioned that we talked 2 years ago, and I think you were saying kind of pretty much the same thing.
Yes. Yes. So yes. And then we started touring. You're putting me on the spot.
Okay.
Yes, we started.
It's funny when somebody says not to put you on the spot, and then they go ahead and put you on the spot.
No, but yes, a lot of the stuff was actually written back then. It was put off to focus on Butcher Babies for that whole year with a lot of touring stuff. And I resumed, and I finished the works to this EP that I wrote. And I'm currently shooting a music video for it. The cover and everything is in the making. The song is called Parabellum, which I want to release in the next couple of weeks. And so it's looking pretty good. And it's something that I have been planning for a while, I'm not gonna lie, and it's something that I really want to do. It's just put music out. Different genres, different, not just
That's
metal.
what I
but
wanted to ask, because
yeah,
we've been talking about Butcher Babies. You mentioned country, you mentioned R&B, you mentioned the film
yes,
libraries. What
yeah,
is this EP? We have to label music just because we do, but how would
we
you
do.
describe this stuff?
Yeah,
how would you label that?
yeah. Well, it's still rock. It's still rock, and you have some good old metal in there for sure. But I definitely explore a lot of the electronic side. Especially one song is really inspired by the music genre future bass. I don't know if your audience is familiar with that type of electronic music, but it's something that really inspired me to combine this type of music with the rock elements. So, the songs are written, the songs are, they're mixed. It's just a matter of finding the right time and place and strategy to put them out there. I wasn't never a fan of just releasing stuff like that. I just really want to do it the proper way and, have a concept behind it,
I'm sorry, I
So
put you on the spot. Do you have a
okay.
title for the EP?
The EP is going to be called Parabellum.
Oh, that's the okay. I thought that
Yeah,
was the
that's
song.
that's
That's the
the
okay.
it's a song too. It's the EP and the song title.
Okay, and that'll be
Yeah.
available in all the usual places.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Are you going to press
And
any hard copies, any CDs or
not
vinyl or
no,
cassettes,
not for
eight
the
track?
no. It's going to be digital for the
I
time
think
being,
that's
and then
smart. I think that's smart.
and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, keep us posted on all that stuff. It's so great catching up with you. And I'm really excited for you with the new album, with Butcher Babies, with your stuff, with the touring, everything else coming up, and all the writing that you're doing. Congratulations on all your success. Keep it going.
Thank you very much, John. Thanks for having me.
It's
I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Our special guest, Ricky Bonazza of Butcher Babies. You are watching the #1 site for learning bass online. I'm John Liebman. You're watching It's Not For Everyone. It's ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We'll see you all next week.